Viewers, on a day when the Bombay High Court gave interim relief to Nikita and Shantanu, the alleged co-authors of the contentious Toolkit, the left Lutyens ecosystem has ripped into the Delhi police for overreach in connection with the Toolkit conspiracy case. But even as the attack peaks, the political attack, the police has claimed that they have evidence to prove a larger global anti-India conspiracy. In order to strengthen their sedition case, the police claim that organizers of the contentious Jan 11 Zoom meeting have links to the banned Khalistani outfit Sikhs for Justice or SFJ. Though the police cite vast digital data to back their charge, they have as yet not submitted any evidence in a court of law or come out publicly with the evidence. To blunt claims that the Zoom meeting was not seditious, police claims that PJF, as part of their soft agenda, hosted the 11 January Zoom meet, which the main accused, Nikita, Shantanu and Disha, attended, and that they were passed on material that was clearly harmful to the sovereignty of the country. Now, viewers, let's talk you through the claims made by the Delhi police to connect the PJF or the organizer of the Zoom meeting to a banned Khalistani outfit. Remember, so far, the police are yet to corroborate their charges by submitting concrete evidence in the public domain or in a court of law. But here's what the police claims, that Nikita, Shantanu and Disha all used one email ID belonging to the Poetic Justice Foundation. Now, all of you know, viewers, simple Google search will bring that fact out to you that the PJF is a militantly anti-India organization committed to the creation of Khalistan. The second big police claim is that Nikita allegedly introduced Disha to Dhaliwal's PJF conspiracy. Again, at this moment in time, the police are reluctant to share evidence with public platforms like Times Now or even submit it in court. They're continuing to investigate this, and they assure us, will put it out in due course. The third big claim is that evidence that PFJ and banned organization, Khalistani organizations, the Sikh for Justice, are working together. This is really what they claim is at the heart of this case. PFJ and banned Sikhs for Justice were played good cop, bad cop. So they were playing good cop and bad cop. One is a front of a more notorious organization that is banned. Very interesting claim by the police. The police also claim that the PJF, which is the Poetic Justice Foundation, would peddle soft agenda with Twitter storm via celebrities. So while the hard agenda, which is the real insidious Khalistani agenda, would go through the SFJ, the Sikhs for Justice Foundation, the softer aspect of all of this would be put out through the PJF of Mo Dhaliwal. Mo Dhaliwal, of course, viewers, is a committed Khalistani. The other big claim, SFJ had radical agenda, and it promoted that radical agenda, the hard agenda, by offering a $250,000 reward for installing the Khalistani flag at the Red Fort, which is exactly what happened on the 26th. Nikita and company scripted the toolkit at the behest of Dhaliwal's aide Puneet, and they also say, viewers, that Nikita and Peter Friedrich, who is supposed to be an ISI linked, now this is what the police are saying, viewers, ISI linked American citizen discussed using a VPN on WhatsApp chat. We'll get you more, of course, disclosures at around 8:30 on this show, viewers. Be sure to tune in. Friedrich, the police claim, two under Indian agencies' radar since 2005 for K2 link, which is the Kashmir Khalistan link. Friedrich is linked to Bhajan Singh Bhinder, a suspected ISI agent. Of course, Friedrich has come out and issued a statement against reportage of this nature by saying it's all false. Pro-Khalistani Bhinder's part of ISI's Kashmir Khalistan conspiracy. So they're trying to suggest that there was a larger motive behind all of this. Of course, police yet to put out the evidence in the public domain, as I'm telling you, but they are assuring that in the due course of this public trial, they will. Today, Nikita Jacob got reprieve from arrest for the 3 weeks from the Bombay High Court. Her counsel asks, what's the proof to back serious charges of sedition? Listen to this, viewers.
You cannot merely base your allegations on what you think on what you think could have been. It doesn't work like that. The court doesn't work like that. The court entirely and simply needs evidences. Evidences from our end which proves that Nikita is absolutely innocent and she doesn't have any allegiance, any kind of associations with any kind of Khalistani movements or whatsoever.
Would you also claim that there was no monetary benefit was received by Nikita Jacob for whatever the contributions she was giving in the name of Toolkit?
Not even a single penny. That I can make a statement because I have gone through the papers till now. Whatever instructions I have sought, not even a single penny in terms of monetary, any account, nor any single penny, not even a single penny is transferred to her from any of these organizations.
Now, viewers, of course, on the back of all of this, the opposition has been constantly attacking the government for overreach, saying that they are trying to snuff out dissidents by using strong laws, draconian laws, to quash the youth as well as the voice of dissent. In just a few moments, viewers, Harish Salve, former SG and India's #1 lawyer, is going to be looking into this entire case and examining whether the police were right to slap a sedition case against those who they claim have authored the toolkit. But listen first to Rahul Gandhi as he sets up this conversation.
Look, throughout the country, people are being arrested for what they feel. So if you're shutting up the nation and you're frightening people and not allowing them to talk, you're destroying the nation's character. You're destroying the nation's destiny. It's simple. And no youngster in this country should allow anybody to frighten them into silence. You have a role in society, you have power in society, fight for it. If somebody takes it away, challenge him. Don't run away and say, no, I can't do it, I'm a woman. Absolutely you can. Stand up to him. And many of your brothers, like me, are standing right there with you to work with you for it. Not to protect you, because you can protect yourself, but to stand by your side.
We're joined today by the incomparable Harish Salve. We're speaking just days after the arrest of an environmental activist for allegedly creating and circulating the controversial toolkit related to the farmer protest. Viewers, as you know, we begun the program by giving you some details of what the Delhi police is apparently allegedly unearthing. Disha has been charged for sedition, promoting enmity between groups, intent to riot and criminal conspiracy. Mr. Salve, is this, in your opinion, a valid address or is it overreach?
I have only as much access to information as someone who reads electronic media and very little of it. But I have read the toolkit, and from what I have read of the toolkit, it does appear to be a document which is definitely nothing to do with a farmers' protest, but an attempt to bring back the specter of the horrors which we all lived through in the early 80s in Punjab. So if India is very sensitive to the K word, I don't blame India at all, and I think we should nip this in the bud. Now, how serious is this toolkit is something which only the police will know. How serious are these people? But I wonder what, I'm sure if they have sufficient evidence and people have uploaded this, and if people are in touch with banned organizations, and I've read some names, I don't know who those organizations are, I haven't heard of them, then I think it's about time that the country can assert its sovereignty. This has nothing to do with farmers' protests, nothing to do with farm laws, but if somebody is trying to use any pretext to reopen the wounds of early 80s, which we have all lived through, and those of us who are old enough to remember those terrible days, I think if India reacts, India should react.
Mr. Salve, many have cited her age. She's only 22 to validate their claim that this is an action undertaken by an insecure government that is intolerant of dissent. Now, what do you make of this argument?
Big adjectives, Rahul. This is what life has all become about. Adjectives, one-liners, punchlines, hashtags. I think somewhere you have to have a structured argument which may spill over a line or two. If the government has evidence of somebody linked to banned organizations and that someone is involved in some way, the age may be a mitigating factor if ultimately a court finds her guilty of an offense and convicts her. We cut off the statutory age of innocence at 12 and 14 and 12, and then we have our juvenile laws. So how the law addresses youngsters is different. Criminal law at the age of 22 assumes that you are mature enough to take decisions. These people are mature enough to criticize the government, and they are welcome to criticize the government in the harshest of terms. They are welcome to take the side of the farmers. Some of us may disagree. Some of us may agree. They may be entitled to demand that the government repeal its laws. Some of us may agree. Some of us may disagree. They may say the government is not being fair or worse adjectives for the government. We don't like their words, but as long as it stays within the four corners of protest, it is one thing. It is quite another thing to hold hands with organizations which are banned organizations and try and allow their agenda to come in and ride piggyback on their agenda. Let me tell you what I personally feel. Environment protection is a cause dear to our heart. But if you want to finance your projects for environmental protection and climate change protests, joining hands with those whose intention is not climate change, but whose intention is subversion of India, I think you run the risk of being hooked up with them, being called conspirators with them, and face the consequences of the law. The wrath of the law will come on anybody who tries to bring the horrors back to Punjab, and I don't mince my words on that.
Now, the nub of the police case, at least as of now, or at least the allegations are that these alleged conspirators, Nikita Jacob, activist Shantanu, and Disha, were part of a Zoom call with members of the Poetic Justice Foundation. Their founder, Mo Dhaliwal, is a self-proclaimed Khalistan sympathizer, is committed to the breakup of this country. This Zoom meeting took place on January 11th. Does getting on a Zoom call with an alleged Khalistani sympathizer based overseas itself constitute a crime according to Indian laws or according to your own assessment, sir?
It depends what the Zoom call is for. If you and I were to do a Zoom call to try and swindle money out of an Indian bank, would that not be the commission of an offense? Of course it would be.
Of course, we're awaiting details on the
exactly. Depends on the content of the conversation.
Yeah.
Depends on the content of the conversation. Now, I'm assuming that, and I believe some of them have been given bail by the court. If the police can't produce sufficient evidence, the court will take into account that these are angry youngsters. The court will play in the background of any, in the mind of the judge will also be that has this youngster crossed the line. So I don't think our judges are so insensitive so as to not realize that sometimes these angry youngsters behave in a manner which may be irresponsible. But there is a thick black line between being irresponsible and going to the extent of allowing your sympathy, your collaboration, not just your sympathy, your collaboration with the cause of terrorists. If they have crossed the line, they will be visited with the consequences of the law.
Ignorance.
Now, we don't know whether they have or they haven't.
Okay, ignorance about the antecedents of the people they were allegedly interacting with. Can that be a defense, a strong enough defense?
See, if you and I have a conversation and you take me on face to be a decent person, and we have a conversation about a legitimate cause, you don't know what my antecedents are. Of course, then you're not committing an offense. If I keep a bag in your house which has a gun, you're not committing the offense under the Arms Act. It's called unconscious possession. If you're not conscious of it, offense is only committed with an active state of mind. If I have a conversation with somebody and it turns out that that person is a terrorist, doesn't mean I've chatted with the terrorist. I mean, factually, I may have chatted with the terrorist. So the police will have to show some material to suggest that their conversation was not a conversation per se, but they purported to act. Now, what I've read on the social media is that you take a toolkit which itself has certain actions which are not, let us say, at least consistent with the dignity of India, to behave in a particular way on the 26th of January. And then you take the toolkit and you upload it and you make it public and you try and use your credentials as a climate activist or as a person who's given to social causes. You try and put your weight behind that toolkit and try and encourage people to follow that toolkit. I think you should find out who is the person behind this toolkit.
Well, that, of course, now remains, in police investigative, jurisdiction. But the authors, the original proponents, let's say, of the toolkit have owned up. This is a group that sits out of Canada, Mo Dhaliwal's organization. You just have to do a functionary check
Exactly.
on Google and you will get the kind of rubbish this man spews. I would have played out the soundbite for you. But the fundamental point, sir, and I want to come to this. One of those who has been accused, the 22-year-old that is in custody right now, told Greta Thunberg about the possibility of UAPA being invoked and had her delete the original toolkit tweet and replace it with an updated one. Can one fearing UAPA not have feared the possibility of the invocation of sedition? That's the question I want to ask you, sir.
Well, if you ask me, honestly, these youngsters, if they are clever enough to raise the kind of issues and to use the kind of language which they do, if they think they have the maturity and the status and the stature to use sharp words for our prime minister and our government, which you can in a democracy. When it comes to accountability for their actions, they shouldn't plead age as a defense. If a 22-year-old thinks she has the stature to criticize Prime Minister Modi in rather vituperative language and criticize the government in vituperative language, when it comes to accountability for their actions, they can't say, oh, I'm only 22. So, I'm sorry, I don't buy this at all. Secondly, you are absolutely right. It did not require a FBI investigation to find out who was the author of the toolkit. It was available in public domain. Now, these youngsters who live in the social media age and social media space, it strains my credulity to believe that this was an innocent act. A, the toolkit was not innocent. B, the author of the toolkit is far from innocent. If you join in such an endeavor, you're opening yourself to a charge under the UFPA. And the fact that she told Greta, who I don't know who has authorized that youngster to comment on India, I don't even know if she can spot India on a map, who has authorized her to comment on Indian farmers. I didn't realize she has such in-depth knowledge about Indian farm issues. And she is such a devout student of Indian farm agriculture and its economics. Anyway, if she is warning that girl that you might be in trouble in India, I think this plea of innocence sounds phony.
Okay, so let me just ask you this. The toolkit talks about physical actions. Now I'm quoting out of the toolkit. Physical actions near Indian embassies, government media houses, Adani Ambani offices. Now, some would say there's no direct call for violence in the toolkits, and judicial precedents have laid that an incitement to violence is necessary for a case of sedition or hate speech to result in conviction. Do the charges thereby by themselves make sense to you?
No. See, what is incitement to an offense depends on whom you're inciting.
Right.
If you cite a case of 5 villagers attacking 2 other villagers, and you're saying what is an exhortation, is very different from youngsters who operate in this space, communicating messages to each other. When you say physical action, what does it connote to the people who are your target audience? that would decide whether this is exhortation to violence. And I, speaking for myself, I have no doubt, especially if what the Delhi police, I don't know what they are saying is right, I have no reason to disbelieve it. If what the Delhi police says is that what happened on the ground was pretty much as scripted, to quite an extent as scripted in this toolkit. Now, prima facie at this stage, and don't forget, we are, Rahul, at the stage of suspicion. The Criminal Procedure Code at this stage operates in the area of suspicion. If she is being suspected of having committed a criminal offense, I don't know why there's such a hullabaloo about her being arrested. And if she is arrested, wrongly arrested, if the police can't satisfy the conscience of a judge, she'll get bail.
Okay, so quoting further out from this toolkit, India's farmers and other citizens need the global community to pay attention. The world needs to know that India is retreating from democracy, regressing hard by rushing headlong in fascism. International focus on these protests may be the only thing preventing more state-sponsored violence and another massacre, genocide in India. Now, Mr. Salve, yes, this is indication of spreading disaffection against India, but would it amount to sedition at some level, in your opinion?
See, this, if somebody talks nonsense by saying India is indulging in mass murder and genocide without having any real bite on the ground, it's one thing. You are a part of a organization such as that, what is that, Peace and Justice and whatever,
yes.
Canadian organization.
Yeah, the Poetic Justice Foundation, PJF.
Poetic Justice. Yeah,
which the police say also has links to the SFJ, which is a banned Khalistani supremacist group.
See, the organizations use words like poetic to try and put a thick veil over what their real nefarious purpose is. And unfortunately, our neighboring country is always happy to fuel all such dissensions. If these people are spreading the story of disaffection to their followers, who we know are being exhorted to taking up arms against the Indian state, is very different from a crank who says, oh, I think every time there is a riot, it is state-sponsored violence. We've heard this criticism of state-sponsored violence. Every time there is a riot, well, you may say it's a criticism of the government or it's not a criticism of the government. But these are not people who are criticizing the government. I mean, you and I know what is written here is absolute bilge. The farmers' protest has nothing to do with democracy and democratic principles. If the farmers insist a particular law should or should not be made, but that's their point of view. There is equally a strong point of view that the law should be made. And speaking for myself, Rahul, in a democracy, I do not understand where you can sit and tell a lawful elected government saying, I do not want to talk to you, repeal the law or else.
Right.
This is not the way of dialogue. But anyway, that's for the farmer leaders to decide what they want to do. Now, in a situation like this, if somebody wants a person with the antecedents of the kind they have, wants to fish in troubled waters, and that person uses language of genocide, mass murder, tries to say that the farmer struggle is a part of a protest against rising fascism, whatever that expression means, it has a completely different meaning from just some dilettante who feels every time there is a riot in India, it is state-sponsored violence, so that India, every time India does something, India is now drifting towards democracy. I was just telling somebody, I'm sorry to digress, I was just telling somebody, it's a very sad trend which I'm seeing nowadays, Rahul, and I'm sorry to say so. Very sad trend of binaryism. Any judge who decides against the government, well, he decides on the merits of the case. But any judge who decides in favor of the government or if upholds the stand of the government is pro-BJP. So this kind of nonsense which has come to stay today, people may or may not like. You cannot say that the judiciary must decide the way I want them to decide. So this comment being made by a person who generally wants to criticize the government is one thing. But if you are joining a neo-terrorist organization who has known for promoting violence in a country like India, where we have remember the horrors of early 80s of Punjab, I think it's a case for the government to act. I would hold the government guilty if they did not act strongly with all that there is in our armory to stop this right now.
Okay, that's a big exhortation from your side. But I just want to come back to this. Fanning fears of genocide, does this constitute a prosecutable crime under Indian law? Specific question to you.
Sorry, I didn't quite follow that.
Fanning fears of a genocide, like this toolkit does this constitute a prosecutable crime under Indian law, sir?
See, again, it depends. Sedition is not, if I say if you vote so-and-so into office,
yeah,
that person is a person who's autocratic, who's dictatorial, and he will create a genocide. Well, it may be an irresponsible statement, it may be in bad taste, but that may not be sedition. Depends whom it is directed against. If you're talking of state genocide, it depends in what context. You're getting now dangerously close to crossing the line. And sedition should only be resorted to where there is an attack on the sovereignty of India. If genocide, because we misuse a lot of phrases only for effect. If we start saying genocide only in order to underscore or in order to make more rhetorical our criticism of what has happened in the country, then that by itself may not be sedition. But it is when you're using, you take a farmer's protest, which is about an agricultural law. I mean, the irony is those farmers are sitting and blocking the capital. The matter went to Supreme Court. The government told the Supreme Court, whatever you say, we will do. The farmers told the Supreme Court, who are you to intervene in this matter? So we know which side democracy lies. Anyway, the farmers gave a promise. The leaders, God knows who broke that. What happened was a disgrace of the 26th of January. So we have that situation. That is a democracy. We have suffered that. But to say that the farmers' protest is a part of mass murder and genocide, fascism, and this being said by a group which is known to promote secession and terrorism to achieve the dismemberment of India, it has a completely different connotation.
At a granular level, the Delhi police has come under criticism. They went across to Karnataka and they've been criticized for not applying for transit remand, but arresting Disha. Is this criticism, in your opinion, justified? Should they have applied for transit remand?
There are different ways of doing it. If you can either go through the local police or you can go and arrest, but they cannot. It's a 24-hour thing. You have to apply for transit bail or transit remand. There are certain situations which you don't apply, and if they've not applied for transit remand, I don't know the details. The court will release her immediately, saying she's been illegally arrested.
The opposition says that now, just coming back to the point you were making, you said that if the government was not to prosecute this case, you would in fact be disappointed. That's what you said to that effect. Now, yeah. I just want to ask you, is there validity to claim that there could be a case of vendetta by the Indian government? We know that they're under a bit of pressure on these farm laws. Anyone, therefore, criticizing the government then faces the weight of the law and serious charges such as this. Do you rule that out?
Look, if one of the leaders is arrested for murder,
right,
you'll call it vendetta? I mean, this vendetta theory at some point has to end, You can't say behaving in this fashion or being anti-government gives you a cloak of immunity. That now that I've abused the government, anything you do against me is a vendetta. So now I'm above the law. We have to be careful of this vendetta business. Yes, if it can be found that the arrest was made without any lawful purpose, surely then it would be a vendetta. And in my view, and I'm for somebody from your profession who's been arrested, I am advising filing a case for damages against the government and public law for wrongful arrest. And it's about time we brought in the law of wrongful arrest. So if it is established it's a wrongful arrest and a vendetta, the government must be asked to pay damages. And these would be exemplary damages. And if necessary, come out of the salary of the people who ordered the arrest. But till such time as a court finds the arrest to be unlawful, how do you call it vendetta? That means again, this goes back to saying that, yes, this is a vendetta, and if the judges do not agree with us, the judges are biased.
Well, there have been cases that have been, as you know, prosecuted against several activists, NGOs, etc., who might not share the same point of view with the government in the recent past. Some statistics are doing the round. Some 6,000-7,000 sedition cases, etc., have been filed by the NDA, and that's where this apprehension is coming from. That look, most of these arrests are without lawful purpose, as you would say. And therefore, this government is squeamish about taking on criticism, responding to it in a democratic manner, and therefore they go in with the heavy armory of the law. That's where this is coming from.
Aren't we getting ahead of ourselves, Rahul? If the courts have declined to give relief, let's why talk of generalities? Okay. Let's talk of specifics.
Yeah.
The group of intellectuals who filed petitions against the Maharashtra government in the Yalgar case.
Yes.
What happened? The Supreme Court didn't give relief. They found there was material. The court was criticized.
Yeah.
And I can share with you what I argued for 20 minutes in that case, and I only told the court one thing. I said, it hurts me to hear the kind of language which is now becoming the vocabulary of lawyers in the court. But I said, you think that by giving a long rope to these kind of cases and allowing their lawyers to abuse and to be vituperative, you are going to give a feeling that you are being fair. It is not going to happen. It's us and them. Either you hold in our favor or you are pro-government and biased. So this is what happens. So you start with this narrative saying here is a vendetta, and anybody who disagrees with me is a pro-BJP, is pro-government, is for sale, who's sold his conscience, has bartered his conscience. So, it's this binaryism today. Either you listen to a group of people who are vocal, whose voice is heard, or you're pro-government and you're soulless. I mean, if that's how life is going to be, then you cannot have a sensible conversation. All the courts are against you, all the people are against you, all the lawyers, half the lawyer fraternity is against you. Only a handful of people know what is good for India. That's where we are.
Well, I'll leave it at this, because then we'll go off track. We were talking about this particular case and the issues involved within it. We don't want to digress too much. Thank you, Mr. Salve. Obviously, a lot now depends on the police and its investigation and how they can connect the dots.
Treat it as yet another crime.
Yes.
Let the police do their job. The day the court finds that the police have been 1 millimeter less than fair, attack the government, attack the police. But till that time, hold your breath.
Let that be the final word on this. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.